My name is Isla, 34 years old, and sometimes I still wake up in disbelief at how much my life has changed in just 1 year. After escaping a marriage that slowly suffocated me, I never imagined finding love again, let alone carrying a child. But life had other plans. When Jake suddenly reappeared after our divorce, he found me 7 months pregnant, with another man standing protectively beside me. Before I share what happened when my ex-husband returned to find me 7 months pregnant, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to rebuild your life after someone tried to break you. I met Jake during my sophomore year of college. He was everything I thought I wanted. Charismatic, ambitious, with a smile that could light up a room. He pursued me relentlessly and I fell hard. Our romance was a whirlwind of passionate dates, thoughtful gifts, and promises of forever. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags, but they were masterfully disguised as care and protection. "You don't need to go to that party, Isla. Those girls aren't real friends anyway," he'd say, or "that internship would take too much time away from us. Don't you want to be together?" Each suggestion seemed reasonable in isolation. Each boundary erased was for our benefit. By graduation, we were engaged and 6 months later married. Jake landed a position at a prestigious law firm while I put my graphic design career on hold because he insisted one of us needed to make a home. That someone, of course, was me. The first year wasn't terrible. I decorated our apartment, cooked elaborate meals, and told myself I was living the dream. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, my world began to shrink. Friends stopped calling after I'd cancelled too many times. My art supplies gathered dust. Jake's criticism became a constant companion. My cooking wasn't quite right, the apartment wasn't clean enough, my appearance could use improvement. "I only want what's best for you," he'd say, after reducing me to tears. "You're just too sensitive." By our second anniversary, Jake became fixated on having children. I hesitated, sensing something was deeply wrong in our relationship, but couldn't articulate it. This led to endless arguments where he'd accuse me of being selfish, of denying him a family. "What else are you even doing with your life?" he'd sneer. "Most women would be grateful to have a husband who can provide everything." Eventually, I gave in as I always did. When I became pregnant after several months of trying, Jake was ecstatic. For a brief moment, I thought perhaps a baby would soften him, would bring back the man I thought I'd married. Then came the miscarriage. I was only 11 weeks along when the cramping started, followed by blood. So much blood. I called Jake from the bathroom floor, terrified and in pain. "Can't you handle this yourself?" he asked irritably. "I'm in the middle of preparing for court." He did drive me to the hospital, but spent the entire time on his phone. As I lay there losing our baby, feeling more alone than I ever had, something inside me finally broke. The doctor was kinder to me in those few hours than Jake had been in months. The drive home was silent until Jake finally spoke. The doctor said stress can cause miscarriages. Maybe if you weren't so anxious all the time, this wouldn't have happened. I stared out the window, too hollow to even cry. That night, while Jake slept soundly beside me, I realized I was married to someone who didn't love me. He loved controlling me. The following weeks were dark. Jake pushed to try again immediately, showing no regard for my physical or emotional recovery. When I suggested counselling, he laughed. "There's nothing wrong with me. You're the one who needs fixing." It was during this period that I started secretly seeing a therapist. I used the grocery money and told Jake I was joining a book club. My therapist, Dr. Winters, was the first person to name what was happening: emotional abuse. Parallel to therapy, I began taking online graphic design courses, updating my long-neglected skills. I also reconnected with my old college friend Sarah through social media, being careful to delete all traces of our conversations from my devices. Jake grew increasingly suspicious of my time, demanding to know my whereabouts constantly. One evening, after going through my belongings, he found my birth control pills, which I'd started taking without telling him. His rage was terrifying. He threw the pills against the wall, grabbed my shoulders hard enough to leave bruises, and screamed inches from my face, calling me every vile name imaginable. "You sneaky, lying bitch, you've been deceiving me this entire time." Is there someone else? Is that it? There wasn't, but in that moment I wished there had been. I wished I had somewhere to run to, someone who would protect me from the stranger my husband had become. The morning after Jake discovered my birth control, I woke up to find all my art supplies, paints, brushes, sketchbooks gone from our spare room. When I frantically asked what happened, he casually mentioned he'd thrown everything in the dumpster. "You were wasting too much time on that hobby anyway," he said, sipping his coffee. "Maybe now you'll focus on what really matters." Something inside me finally snapped. All these years I'd bent until I was nearly broken, compromised until there was almost nothing left of me. But my art, that was the last piece of the real Isla he hadn't destroyed, and now he'd casually tossed it away like it was garbage, like I was garbage. That afternoon, while Jake was at work, I called Sarah. Through tears, I told her everything. "You need to get out, Isla," she said firmly. "This isn't love. This is imprisonment." She gave me the number of a divorce attorney her friend had used, a woman who specialized in helping people leave controlling relationships. I called from a payphone near the grocery store and scheduled a consultation for the following day during my book club time. Attorney Maureen Garcia listened without judgment as I spilled my story. When I finished, worried I didn't have enough proof of abuse, since Jake had never hit me, she reached across her desk and squeezed my hand. "Emotional abuse is still abuse, Isla. And from what you've described, you're in danger of it escalating. We need to get you out safely." Over the next few weeks, I met with Maureen several times. She helped me develop an exit strategy. I began documenting Jake's behavior in a journal I kept hidden at Sarah's house. I recorded conversations on my phone. I opened a separate bank account using Sarah's address for statements and slowly transferred small amounts from our joint savings, not enough that Jake would notice, but enough to give me a cushion. I arranged for a storage unit and piece by piece removed sentimental items and important documents from our home while Jake was at work. Sarah helped me search for affordable apartments. My therapist connected me with a support group for women in similar situations. Finally, after 2 months of preparation, I was ready. I chose a Sunday morning when Jake would be home. Better to have this conversation in daylight, Maureen had advised, and to have someone nearby. Sarah waited in her car down the street, ready to help me leave if needed. "I want a divorce," I said simply, after Jake had finished his breakfast. He laughed, actually laughed as if I'd told a particularly amusing joke. "No, you don't," he replied confidently. "Where would you go? What would you do? You haven't worked in years. You have nothing without me, Isla." "I've already found an apartment," I said, amazed at how steady my voice sounded. "I've spoken with an attorney. I'm leaving today." His expression transformed from amusement to disbelief, then to a cold fury I'd seen glimpses of, but never in full force. "You ungrateful bitch," he hissed. "After everything I've done for you, you think anyone else would want you? You're damaged goods, Isla. You can't even carry a child." Each word was calculated to wound, to hit my deepest insecurities. 6 months ago, they would have shattered me, but now they just confirmed I was making the right choice. "My bags are packed," I said. "Sarah is waiting outside to help me move." At the mention of Sarah, whom he'd always disliked, Jake's face contorted with rage. He knocked over his coffee mug, sending shards of ceramic and hot liquid across the kitchen floor. "You'll regret this," he snarled. "I'll make sure you walk away with nothing. Nothing. You'll come crawling back when you realize you're nothing without me." I walked out while he was still shouting, got into Sarah's car and didn't look back. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Jake fought me on every detail, dragged things out as long as possible, and tried to leave me with as little as possible. His attorney was ruthless, but Maureen was better. After 4 exhausting months, it was finalized. Jake took a job at his firm's office across the country. His final email suggested it was to spite me to show how easily he could move on. I moved into Sarah's spare bedroom, financially drained, but free. That first night in her apartment, I lay awake until dawn, alternating between panic at what I'd done and overwhelming relief that it was over. I was 33, divorced, nearly broke, and starting from scratch. But for the first time in years, I could breathe. The first 3 months after my divorce were some of the hardest of my life. I'd wake up gasping from nightmares where Jake was standing over me. Certain sounds, a door slamming a car that sounded like his, would trigger panic attacks that left me huddled in corners, struggling to breathe. Dr. Winters diagnosed me with PTSD and suggested medication for anxiety, along with continued therapy. Recovery isn't linear, she reminded me gently. There will be good days and bad days. The goal is to gradually have more good than bad. I found a job at Bluebird Designs, a small graphic design firm, that valued my portfolio more than my employment gap. The salary wasn't much, but combined with what I'd salvaged from the divorce, it allowed me to start looking for my own place after 2 months with Sarah. My apartment was tiny, a studio with barely enough room for a bed and a small desk for my art supplies. But it was mine. No one could throw away my things or tell me how to arrange the furniture or criticize my taste. The first night there, I cried again, but these were different tears. Healing tears. Slowly, I began reaching out to old friends Jake had isolated me from. Some relationships couldn't be salvaged, too much time had passed, too many ignored calls and declined invitations, but others welcomed me back with open arms and no judgment. We always knew something wasn't right. My college friend Tanya told me over coffee. We just didn't know how to reach you. I joined a support group for survivors of emotional abuse, where I met women whose stories mirrored my own. There's a unique comfort in not having to explain, in being truly understood. Together, we celebrated small victories a week without a panic attack, standing up to a pushy salesperson, filing for a name change back to my maiden name. 6 months after my divorce, I was in a much better place. Not healed, not completely, but healing. I'd started painting again, small canvases, bursting with colours Jake would have deemed too chaotic. I'd been promoted at work, I'd made new friends, and reconnected with old ones. It was at a dinner party hosted by Tanya that I met Marcus. He was her husband's friend from college, recently moved back to town after several years away. Tall, with kind eyes and a quiet confidence, he was nothing like Jake's flashy charm. When Tanya introduced us, I felt an immediate spark of interest, followed by immediate guilt and fear. I wasn't ready. I might never be ready. Isla's our resident artist, Tanya said. Marcus teaches art history at the community college. Really? I managed, fighting the urge to make an excuse and leave. What period? Contemporary American, he replied. But honestly, I'm more interested in creating than analysing these days. I've been trying to learn pottery and failing spectacularly. He showed me pictures of his lopsided attempts at bowls, laughing at himself with such genuine humour that I couldn't help smiling. We talked for nearly an hour about art, about the creative process, about everything except personal history. At the end of the evening, he asked for my number. My hesitation must have been obvious. Just as friends, he clarified quickly. There's an exhibition next weekend I thought you might enjoy. No pressure at all. I surprised myself by saying yes. We went to the exhibition as friends, then hiking the weekend after, then to a local jazz festival. Each time he was respectful of my space, never pushed for more than I offered, seemed content with my friendship. After a month, I told him about Jake. Not everything, but enough. I expected pity, or worse, for him to disappear. Instead, he thanked me for trusting him. Everyone has a past, he said simply. Some are just harder than others. I'm interested in your present, Isla, and your future, if you decide you want me in it. 3 months after we met, sitting on a blanket at a riverside park, Marcus leaned toward me with questioning eyes. I nodded, and his lips met mine in a kiss so gentle It brought tears to my eyes. Not because it reminded me of Jake, it didn't. It reminded me of who I was before Jake and who I could be again, someone worthy of tenderness. "Is this okay?" he whispered against my mouth. "Yes," I answered, and for the first time in years, I truly meant it. 9 months after my divorce, life had taken a shape I never could have predicted. Marcus and I had been dating for 6 months, taking things slowly but steadily. He was patient in ways I hadn't known men could be, respectful of my boundaries, genuinely interested in my thoughts and feelings. Unlike Jake, who demanded constant attention, Marcus had his own full life. He taught his classes, worked on his pottery, still terrible, but improving, and most importantly, co-parented his 8-year-old daughter Zoe from a previous marriage. Meeting Zoe was terrifying. What if she hated me? What if I couldn't connect with her? What if seeing Marcus as a father triggered memories of Jake's obsession with making me a mother? "She's excited to meet you," Marcus assured me. "But I've told her this is just a casual lunch. No pressure." Zoe turned out to be a miniature version of her father, thoughtful, creative, with the same kind eyes. She was cautious at first, studying me over her pizza. "Dad says you're an artist," she finally said. "I am. I mostly do digital design for work, but I paint for fun." "Could you teach me sometime?" she asked, twisting a strand of hair around her finger. And just like that, we found our connection. Every other Saturday when she stayed with Marcus, we'd have art time. As sometimes Marcus joined us, other times he gave us space to develop our own relationship. My career was flourishing too. I'd been assigned bigger clients at Bluebird and had even started freelancing on the side. My tiny apartment was feeling less like a refuge and more like a cocoon I'd outgrown. Then came the morning I couldn't keep down breakfast, or lunch, or anything at all. After 3 days, I bought a pregnancy test, convinced it was just a stomach bug. 2 pink lines appeared before the control line even registered. I sat on the bathroom floor, shaking, pregnant, after believing the miscarriage might have been my only chance, after all the ways Jake had used my fertility against me, after carefully using protection with Marcus because neither of us had discussed children. Memories of the miscarriage flooded back the pain, the blood, Jake's cruel words. What if it happened again? What if Marcus reacted like Jake had? What if? I didn't tell him right away. I needed to process my own feelings first, to untangle fear from possibility. I scheduled a doctor's appointment, confirmed the pregnancy, learned I was about 8 weeks along. "Everything looks healthy," the doctor assured me. "But I see in your history that you experienced a miscarriage. That must make this pregnancy particularly stressful." I nodded, unable to speak through the knot in my throat. "We'll monitor you closely," she promised, "and I'd like to recommend a therapist who specializes in pregnancy after trauma." For 2 weeks, I carried my secret meeting with both Dr. Winters and the new therapist, working through my tangled emotions. I loved Marcus. I could see a future with him. But a baby, now was I ready to be vulnerable in that particular way again? Finally, one evening, while making dinner at his place, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "I'm pregnant," I blurted out, dropping the spoon I was using to stir pasta sauce. Marcus froze, staring at me with an unreadable expression. "I know we didn't plan this," I rushed on. "I know it's too soon. I know, Isla," he interrupted gently, crossing the kitchen to take my trembling hands. "Breathe for a second. Are you okay? Not, are you sure it's mine? Not, how could you let this happen? Just concern for me first and foremost." "I'm terrified," I admitted. "My last pregnancy, it didn't end well. And Jake, I'm not Jake," Marcus said firmly, "and I'm scared too. But we can figure this out together, whatever you want to do." "You'd support me if I couldn't do this?" I asked cautiously. "I'd support you no matter what," he answered without hesitation. "But for what it's worth, I think you'd be an incredible mother. I've seen you with Zoe, and I'd be there, really there, every step of the way." We talked for hours that night. About practical considerations, my apartment was too small. His had an extra bedroom, but was in a different school district for Zoe. About emotional ones, was our relationship ready for this level of commitment? About our fears, my history of miscarriage, his worries about balancing attention between a new baby and Zoe. There were no easy answers, but by morning we'd decided to move forward together. The pregnancy would continue. We'd take the challenges as they came. The first trimester was rough. Morning sickness hit me hard, making work difficult. My anxiety spiked with every twinge and cramp. Marcus came to every appointment, held my hair when I was sick, and never once complained when I called him at 3 a.m. convinced something was wrong. When we passed the 12-week mark further than I'd gotten, before we had a small celebration dinner with Zoe, Sarah, and a few close friends. Marcus toasted with sparkling cider to new beginnings and brighter futures. Watching him that evening, his hand occasionally resting protectively on my still flat stomach, I realized I had never felt so safe, so cherished, so normal. The life I'd resigned myself to never having was somehow taking shape around me. "Move in with us," Marcus suggested that night as we washed dishes. "My place is bigger and it doesn't make sense for you to renew your lease when it's up next month." The old fear flickered, giving up my space, my independence. But this wasn't Jake trying to control me. This was Marcus offering to build something with me. "Yes," I said, and the smile that lit up his face confirmed I'd made the right choice. At 7 months pregnant, I'd finally started to believe in happy endings. My baby girl we'd learned the sex at the 20-week ultrasound was healthy and active, kicking so vigorously that Marcus could feel it when he placed his hand on my rounded belly. We'd transformed the spare room in his apartment into a nursery painting, the walls a soft mint green, a colour Jake would have deemed impractical, but that brought me joy every time I entered the room. Zoe was thrilled about becoming a big sister. She'd helped choose stuffed animals for the crib and often talked to my stomach, telling the baby about all the things they would do together. Marcus and I had settled into a comfortable routine. He taught his classes 3 days a week and worked from home the other 2, while I'd arranged with Bluebird to work remotely part-time until after the baby arrived. We cooked together, went for evening walks, and spent weekends on small adventures with Zoe when she was with us. It wasn't perfect. We had disagreements, moments of frustration, days when pregnancy hormones made me burst into tears over commercials. But it was real and healthy and more than I'd ever thought possible after Jake. I should have known it was too good to last undisturbed. The Saturday before everything changed had been ordinary in the best way. Marcus and I were at the baby store shopping for the few items we still needed. I was examining car seats while he looked at strollers nearby. "Isla." The voice hit me like an electric shock. I knew it instantly, though I hadn't heard it in over a year. Slowly I turned. Jake stood 3 feet away, looking exactly as I remembered him, perfectly tailored clothes, expertly styled hair, the confident posture of someone used to commanding rooms. His eyes widened as he took in my pregnant form. You're pregnant," he stated unnecessarily, his gaze fixed on my belly. My throat closed. The store's bright lights suddenly seemed too harsh, the air too thin. My hands instinctively moved to protect my stomach. "Isla, you okay?" Marcus appeared at my side, confusion turning to concern as he noticed my pale face and rapid breathing. He placed a protective hand on my lower back. "I'm fine," I managed, though. My voice sounded distant even to my own ears. This is Jake, my ex-husband." Understanding dawned in Marcus's eyes, followed by a hardening of his expression. He moved slightly in front of me, not aggressively, but definitively placing himself between Jake and me. "Marcus," he introduced himself with cool politeness, not offering his hand. Jake's gaze flicked between us, lingering on Marcus's protective stance and my obvious pregnancy. "I didn't know you were back in town," I finally said, finding my voice. "Took a position at the Home Office again. Been back about 2 weeks. His eyes never left my stomach. You've been busy. The implication in his tone made my cheeks burn with both shame and anger, as if I'd done something wrong, as if my body was still, somehow, his territory. We should go, Marcus suggested quietly, his hand still steady on my back. We've got that appointment, remember? There was no appointment, but I nodded gratefully. Wait, Jake stepped closer. We should catch up. I've been doing a lot of thinking this past year, Isla. About us, about what went wrong. Marcus tensed beside me, but remained silent, letting me handle this. There's nothing to discuss, Jake. We're divorced. We've both moved on. My hand found Marcus's, squeezing it for support. Jake's gaze hardened at our joined hands. Have we? I came back for a reason, Isla. I realized what I lost. I wasn't perfect, I know that now, but what we had wasn't healthy. I interrupted, my voice stronger than I expected. I'm happy now, Jake. Really happy. With him? Jake scoffed, looking Marcus up and down dismissively. Playing house and having his baby. How long did you wait after our divorce? Isla, a month. 2. The accusation stung as it was meant to. Marcus stepped forward, his patience clearly thinning. That's enough, he said firmly. You're upsetting her, and that's not good for the baby. The baby, Jake repeated, a strange expression crossing his face. That should have been our baby, Isla. We tried for so long, and now, what? You're having a child with someone you barely know. My chest tightened painfully. A familiar panic began rising, the kind I hadn't experienced in months. Marcus must have felt me trembling because his arm went around my shoulders. We're leaving, he stated, no room for argument in his tone. Isla doesn't owe you any explanations. He guided me toward the exit, my legs moving automatically. Just before we reached the door, Jake called out, I'll be in touch, Isla. We need to talk alone, without your watchdog. Outside in the parking lot, my carefully constructed composure crumbled. I doubled over, gasping for breath, tears streaming down my face. He's back. He's back. He's back, I repeated, unable to form any other thought. Marcus held me, murmuring reassurances until I could breathe normally again. In the car, he handed me a bottle of water and waited patiently while I collected myself. I'm sorry, I finally said. I thought I was stronger than this. You have nothing to apologize for, he replied firmly. Having a panic response to someone who traumatized you isn't weakness, Isla. It's your brain's way of trying to protect you. We drove home in silence, my mind racing with all the implications of Jake's return. Just as we were pulling into the apartment complex, my phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk about what you did. I deserve better than being thrown away. I'll be at Riverside Coffee tomorrow at 2. Come alone. I showed Marcus the message, my hands shaking. You're not going, he said immediately. I know. I don't want to see him ever again. I deleted the message and blocked the number, but the damage was done. Jake was back, and the fragile peace I'd built felt suddenly threatened. That night, I dreamed of Jake. In the dream, I was back in our old house, heavily pregnant, while he systematically removed all the baby items, saying I didn't deserve to be a mother. I woke up sobbing, and Marcus held me until dawn. The weeks following Jake's reappearance were a nightmare. Despite blocking his number, he found ways to contact me, emails from new addresses, messages through mutual acquaintances, once even a handwritten letter delivered to our mailbox, which meant he knew where I lived. The content was always the same. He'd changed, he was sorry, he deserved another chance to talk. Sometimes pleading, sometimes angry, occasionally threatening. My anxiety, which had been well managed, returned with a vengeance. My blood pressure rose to concerning levels at my next prenatal appointment. You need to reduce your stress, my doctor warned. High blood pressure can lead to complications, including early labor. I tried everything: meditation, reducing my work hours, further prenatal yoga. But the constant fear of Jake appearing was like a shadow over everything. Marcus suggested we consult an attorney about a restraining order. I met with Maureen again, bringing printouts of Jake's messages and a log of his unwanted appearances. This is definitely harassment, she confirmed. But I want to be honest with you, Isla. Getting a restraining order might escalate his behavior, at least initially. Are you prepared for that? I placed a hand on my stomach, feeling my daughter kick. I'll do whatever it takes to protect her and myself. While we prepared the legal paperwork, Jake's tactics escalated. He began contacting my friends, telling them I was making a mistake with Marcus, that he'd changed and just wanted to talk. Some who only knew Jake as the charming man he presented publicly were sympathetic to him. He seems genuinely remorseful, my friend Diana told me hesitantly. Maybe just meet him once for closure. I ended that friendship the same day. I couldn't afford to have people in my life who didn't understand the danger Jake represented. The confrontation I'd been dreading came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at work in a client meeting when the receptionist interrupted. "I'm sorry, Isla, but there's a man insisting on seeing you. He says he's your husband, and it's an emergency about the baby." My heart dropped. I excused myself from the meeting and found Jake in the reception area looking perfectly composed in his expensive suit. "What are you doing here?" I hissed, conscious of my colleagues nearby. "You've been ignoring me." He replied calmly, as if this explained everything. "I need to talk to you, and you're not giving me a choice." "There's nothing to talk about. Please leave before I call security." His calm facade cracked slightly. "That should have been our baby," he said, his voice low but intense. "We tried for so long and you lost our child, but you can carry his..." The cruelty of the statement took my breath away. Using my miscarriage as a weapon was low even for Jake. "That's not how it works," I managed, "and you know it. The miscarriage wasn't my fault, isn't it?" His eyes were cold. "You were never fully committed to our marriage to being a real family. You were always holding something back." The receptionist, sensing trouble, had quietly called for security. 2 guards appeared beside us. "Is everything okay, Ms. Winters?" one asked, eyeing Jake with suspicion. "No," I said clearly. "This man is harassing me. He is not my husband. He's my ex-husband, and I need him removed from the building." Jake's face contorted with rage, the mask of civility dropping completely. As the guards moved toward him, he shouted, "That should have been our baby! He stole you from me! This isn't over, Isla." I shook through the rest of the workday, jumping at every sound. Marcus wanted to pick me up, but I insisted on driving myself home. I refused to let Jake reduce me to someone who couldn't function independently. That evening, as we sat on the couch discussing the incident, Marcus made a suggestion that caught me off guard. "Maybe we should stay with my parents for a while, just until the baby comes. They live 2 hours away, and Jake wouldn't know to look for us there." The offer was tempting escape safety peace of mind, but something in me rebelled against the idea. "No," I said firmly. "I'm not running away. I've spent too much of my life hiding and accommodating and shrinking myself because of him. This is our home. This is where we're bringing our daughter home to. I won't let him take that from us." Marcus studied my face, then nodded slowly. "Okay, then we face this head on, together." The next day, I had an empowering session with Dr. Winters. "What you're experiencing now isn't just about Jake," she explained. "It's about reclaiming your agency. For years, he controlled your life through fear and manipulation. Standing your ground now is part of your healing." "But what if he escalates?" I asked. "What if he tries to hurt Marcus or Zoe or the baby?" "That's why we have legal protections," she reminded me. "The restraining order, the police, your support network. You're not facing this alone, Isla. That's the difference between now and then." I left her office feeling stronger, more resolved, which was fortunate because the real crisis came that very night. Around 11, there was pounding on our apartment door. Marcus and I had been asleep, and Zoe was thankfully at her mother's. The noise was so violent that picture frames rattled on the walls. "Isla, I know you're in there. We need to talk." Jake's voice was slurred, clearly intoxicated. Marcus was immediately alert, reaching for his phone. "I'm calling 911. I nodded my hands protectively, covering my stomach. The baby was kicking frantically, as if sensing my distress. "Jake, you need to leave," I called through the door. "You're drunk, and it's the middle of the night." Open the goddamn door! More pounding. I drove all the way here. The least you can do is talk to me after everything I did for you. The police are on their way, Marcus called out, joining me near the door, but keeping me behind him. You're trespassing and violating a pending restraining order. This was technically true. We'd filed the paperwork, though the order hadn't been finalised yet. There was a moment of silence, then the sound of a key scratching against the lock. Was he trying to break in? Marcus positioned himself directly in front of the door. If that door opens, I'm considering it a threat, Jake. The scratching stopped, then suddenly a crash, as Jake apparently threw himself against the door. The frame splintered but held. You stole my wife! Jake shouted. You got her pregnant when I couldn't. She's mine? That baby should be mine. The deranged possessiveness in his voice chilled me to the bone. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was dangerous obsession. Another crash against the door. This time the frame cracked visibly. Marcus braced himself, ready to physically defend us if necessary. Then mercifully, sirens in the distance. Jake must have heard them too, because there was a string of curses, followed by the sound of running footsteps. When the police arrived minutes later, Jake was gone, but he'd left destruction in his wake, our damaged door, my shattered sense of security, and a call from our landlord the next day saying other tenants had complained about the disturbance. The officers took our statements and promised to look for Jake, but without the finalised restraining order, their options were limited. They filed a report for attempted breaking and entering and advised us to stay elsewhere for the night. We ended up at a hotel where I stared at the ceiling until dawn, my mind racing with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. By morning, I'd made my decision. I'm going to the courthouse today to finalise that restraining order, I told Marcus over room service breakfast. And then I'm going to stop being afraid of him, somehow. After the incident at our apartment, things moved quickly. The police found Jake passed out in his car a few blocks away and arrested him for public intoxication. While he was briefly in custody, I finalised the restraining order, which prohibited him from coming within 500 feet of me, our home, or my workplace. According to his attorney, Jake claimed to have no memory of the incident due to his intoxicated state. He was released after a few hours with a court date for the attempted breaking and entering charge and formally served with the restraining order. For a few days, everything was quiet. Too quiet. I jumped at every sound, checked the locks repeatedly, and insisted on keeping the curtains closed at all times. Marcus quietly arranged for a security system to be installed with cameras covering all entrances to our apartment. Do you think he'll actually respect the restraining order? I asked Dr. Winters during an emergency session. Some abusers do, she replied honestly. The legal consequences can be a deterrent. Others see it as a challenge. The important thing is that you've created an official record of his behaviour. If he violates the order, the consequences will be more severe. At 36 weeks pregnant, I was exhausted physically and emotionally. My doctor was monitoring me closely due to my elevated blood pressure and stress levels. Marcus had rearranged his teaching schedule to be home with me as much as possible, and Zoe's mother had generously adjusted their custody arrangement temporarily. I was dozing on the couch one afternoon when a sharp, unfamiliar pain woke me. I sat up, disoriented, just as another wave of pain tightened across my abdomen. Marcus, I called, trying to keep the panic from my voice. He appeared from the kitchen, immediately concern written across his face. I think I'm having contractions, I said, wincing as another pain gripped me. It's too early. Not drastically too early. 36 weeks was considered late preterm, but still 4 weeks before my due date. Marcus drove me to the hospital, making calls to my doctor on the way. By the time we arrived, the contractions were coming every 7 minutes. Your blood pressure is very high, the nurse informed me after checking my vitals. And you're already 3 centimeters dilated. I think this baby is coming today. Memories of my miscarriage flooded back the blood, the pain, the loss. My breathing became shallow as panic set in. Everything was fine at my last appointment. I gasped. Is the baby okay? Is it the stress? Did I cause this? Marcus held my hand tightly as the nurse attached monitors to my belly. A rapid whooshing sound filled the room, our daughter's heartbeat strong and steady. Baby looks good, the nurse assured me, but you're definitely in labor. The doctor is ordering medication to try to lower your blood pressure, and we're going to monitor you both very carefully. The next few hours were a blur of contractions, medications, and medical staff coming and going. My labor progressed rapidly, too rapidly, according to the concerned looks the nurses exchanged. The stress may have triggered early labor, my doctor explained when she arrived, but your baby's weight was estimating well at your last ultrasound, and her heart rate is strong. Try to focus on that, Isla. 8 hours after arriving at the hospital, I was fully dilated and being instructed to push. Marcus never left my side, his steady presence anchoring me through the pain and fear. One more big push, the doctor encouraged. With a final tremendous effort, our daughter entered the world, red-faced, squalling, and perfectly formed. 6 pounds, 4 ounces of miracle. She's beautiful, Marcus whispered, tears streaming down his face as they placed her on my chest. You're both so beautiful. We named her Aurora Dawn, or New Beginning. It seemed fitting for the tiny person who represented everything new and hopeful in our lives. The first night with Aurora was terrifying and wonderful. Every sound she made had me checking to make sure she was breathing. Every nurse who entered the room was scrutinized to ensure they weren't somehow Jake in disguise. Marcus slept in the uncomfortable chair beside my bed, waking whenever I did, changing diapers and bringing Aurora to me for feedings. On the second day, a nurse entered with a large flower arrangement. These were just delivered for you, she said cheerfully, placing them on the windowsill. I froze, suddenly unable to breathe. Who are they from? She checked the card. There's no name, just says, congratulations. Marcus took the card, his expression darkening as he read something the nurse hadn't mentioned. He showed it to me. We still need to talk. I won't be ignored. Please take those away, I requested shakily. And could you make a note that I don't want to receive any more flowers or gifts, unless they're pre-approved by me or my partner? The nurse, sensing my distress, quickly removed the arrangement. We should also tell hospital security about the restraining order, Marcus suggested. Just to be safe, I nodded, clutching Aurora closer. Even here, in what should have been our safe, happy moment, Jake had found a way to intrude. The violation of the restraining order was reported to the police, but since Jake hadn't personally delivered the flowers, it was difficult to prove he'd come within 500 feet of me. The florist confirmed the order had been placed online with a credit card in Jake's name. He's testing boundaries, Maureen explained when I called her, seeing what he can get away with. Document everything, but try not to let it overshadow this time with your daughter. Easier said than done. By the time we were cleared to go home on day 3, I was a bundle of nerves. Marcus had arranged for his mother to stay with us for the first week, giving us an extra pair of hands and another adult in the house, which provided some peace of mind. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Jake was watching, waiting, planning his next move. That moment came when Aurora was 5 days old. Marcus had gone to the pharmacy to pick up my prescription, and his mother was napping after taking the night shift with the baby. I'd just finished feeding Aurora and had placed her in the bassinet when there was a soft knock at the door. After the incident with Jake, we'd developed a system: always check the security camera before opening the door. I picked up my phone to view the camera feed and felt my blood run cold. Jake stood on our doorstep alone, looking deceptively normal in casual clothes. I considered pretending no one was home, but Aurora chose that moment to let out a loud cry. Jake's head tilted clearly, hearing the sound. Isla, he called, his voice carrying through the door. I know you're in there. I just want to talk. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. My hands shook as I texted Marcus. Jake is here. I'm calling the police. Then I dialed 911, speaking in hushed tones to avoid Jake hearing. My abusive ex-husband is at my door violating a restraining order. I have a newborn baby in the house. The dispatcher assured me officers were on the way and advised me not to engage with Jake. But he continued knocking, his voice growing increasingly agitated. Isla, please, I drove by and saw your boyfriend leave. I know you're alone. Just 5 minutes to explain myself. How long had he been watching our apartment? The thought made me physically ill. The police are on their way, Jake, I finally called out, keeping my distance from the door. You're violating the restraining order. You need to leave. There was a pause, then a change in his tone, harder, colder. You'd rather call the cops than talk to me. After everything we meant to each other, that baby should have been ours, Isla. We tried for so long. Anger surged through me, surprising in its intensity. This man had terrorized me for years, made me doubt my own worth, used my body and my fertility as weapons against me. And now he was trying to taint one of the happiest moments of my life. Without conscious decision, I moved toward the door, Aurora's cries fueling my resolve. I didn't open it. I wasn't that foolish, but I stood directly on the other side, my voice strong and clear. Listen to me carefully, Jake, because this is the last time I will ever speak to you. That baby is not yours. She was never meant to be yours. Our marriage was a mistake that nearly destroyed me, and I thank God every day that I found the strength to leave. His response was immediate and explosive, a thud against the door. That must have been his fist. You ungrateful bitch, I gave you everything. You gave me nothing but pain. I continued, my voice steadier than I'd ever thought possible. You isolated me, belittled me, made me believe I was worthless without you, but you were wrong. I am stronger and happier without you. I have a partner who respects me, a daughter who fills my heart with joy, and a life you have no place in. Another thud, harder this time. You'll regret this, Isla. When he leaves you, and he will, you'll remember what we had. What we had was abuse, Jake. And I've spent enough of my life being afraid of you. I'm not afraid anymore. Now get off my property before the police arrive and arrest you. As if on cue, sirens sounded in the distance. I heard Jake curse, followed by retreating footsteps. By the time the police arrived, Jake was gone, but the security camera had captured everything: his presence, his threats, his pounding on the door, clear violations of the restraining order. Marcus returned during the police interview, rushing to my side in panic. Are you okay? Is Aurora okay? I nodded, surprisingly calm. We're fine. Better than fine, actually. And it was true. Standing up to Jake, refusing to be intimidated, had broken something loose inside me, some final chain of fear that had been binding me to my past. The police promised to find Jake and arrest him for violating the restraining order. They increased patrols in our neighborhood and took copies of the security footage as evidence. That night, as I fed Aurora in the quiet darkness, Marcus sitting protectively nearby, I realized something profound. Jake no longer had power over me. He could rage and threaten and try to intimidate, but he couldn't touch the core of who I had become. I was Isla survivor, Isla artist, Isla mother, and no one, especially not Jake, could take that away from me. Aurora is 1 year old today, taking wobbly steps around our new living room, her laughter filling the house with joy. Yes, house, not apartment. 6 months ago, we moved to a small 3-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood with a fenced yard where Zoe can play and Aurora can eventually toddle safely. The last year has been a journey of healing growth and unexpected blessings. After that confrontation at our apartment door, Jake was arrested for violating the restraining order. The security footage, combined with the flower delivery at the hospital and his previous drunken attempt to break in, led to actual consequences. He spent 30 days in jail, was placed on probation for a year, and was ordered to attend anger management and therapy sessions. Most importantly, the restraining order was extended and strengthened, now covering not just me, but Marcus, Zoe, and Aurora as well. According to our attorney, Jake relocated again this time to the West Coast, supposedly for a fresh start. Whether that's true or just another manipulation tactic doesn't matter anymore. I've reclaimed my power, and I refuse to let fear of him dictate my choices. Motherhood has been both harder and more rewarding than I ever imagined. Those first months with Aurora tested me in ways even Jake never had: sleep deprivation, constant worry, the overwhelming responsibility of caring for such a tiny, dependent human. But unlike the helplessness I felt in my marriage, each challenge with Aurora made me stronger, more confident. Marcus proposed 6 months after Aurora's birth, on a quiet evening in our living room while both children slept. No grand gesture, no public spectacle, just an honest question asked with love and respect. "I want to build a life with you, Isla," he said, holding out a simple ring with a small emerald. "Not because you need me or I need you, but because we choose each other every day." I said yes without hesitation. "We're planning a small wedding next spring, with Zoe as junior bridesmaid and Aurora as flower girl, though she'll probably eat the petals rather than scatter them. My career has evolved in unexpected ways too. I left Bluebird Designs to freelance full-time, allowing me more flexibility with Aurora. What began as a practical decision became a blessing in disguise. My client list grew. I developed a niche in designing for small businesses owned by women, and I even illustrated a children's book that will be published next year. The most meaningful work, though, has been the volunteer hours I spend with a local organisation helping women leave abusive relationships. Twice a month, I meet with women who remind me so much of myself 2 years ago, frightened, doubtful, believing the lies their abusers told them about their worth. I share my story, offer practical advice about documentation and legal resources, and simply listen without judgment. "You gave me hope," one woman told me recently, her eyes filled with tears as she clutched her toddler's hand. "Seeing you with your family, knowing where you started, it makes me believe I can have that too someday." I mentor these women through the practical steps of leaving, but the emotional healing is a longer, more personal journey. The scars Jake left have faded, but not disappeared completely. I still occasionally startle at loud noises. I still sometimes doubt myself in ways I know are echoes of his voice in my head, but these moments grow rarer with time. My therapist says healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about integrating it into who you are without letting it define you. I am not just a survivor of abuse, I am an artist, a mother, a partner, a friend, a mentor. I am whole and complex and continuously evolving. The last time I felt truly afraid was 6 months ago when a letter arrived from Jake. I recognized his handwriting immediately and considered burning it unopened, but curiosity and perhaps a need for final closure won out. The letter was surprisingly short and seemingly sincere. He was in therapy, he wrote, finally addressing the anger issues that had plagued him for years. He claimed to understand now how his behavior had hurt me. He wasn't asking for reconciliation or even forgiveness, just acknowledging the harm he'd caused and promising to honor the distance between us. Was it genuine? I'll never truly know. People can change if they commit to the difficult work of self-examination and growth. I'd like to think Jake might someday find peace and healthier relationships, but his journey is no longer my concern, and his redemption is not my responsibility. Today, as we celebrate Aurora's first birthday with a small gathering of friends and family, I look around at the life I've built from the ashes of what Jake tried to destroy. Marcus is helping Zoe hang streamers while Aurora babbles excitedly in my arms. Sarah, still my steadfast friend, is arranging cupcakes on a platter. My parents, with whom I've rebuilt a relationship after years of distance during my marriage, are chatting with Marcus's family. This is what freedom looks like. This is what healing creates. Not a perfect life, we still have ordinary struggles with finances, childcare, work, life balance, but a life built on mutual respect, genuine love, and the knowledge that I am valued for exactly who I am. If you're watching this and recognize yourself in my story, if you're with someone who makes you feel small, who isolates you, who uses your insecurities against you, please know that there is life after abuse. There is joy after trauma. There is love that doesn't hurt. It won't be easy. The path out is rarely straight or simple, but you deserve to be safe. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to live without fear. I'm living proof that the other side of fear is worth fighting for, and so are you. Thank you for listening to my story today. If you found it meaningful, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and healing. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after a relationship that tried to break you? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Sending love and strength to each of you wherever you are on your journey.